Thank you very much, Boris. Oh, someone said avatar. Who? Yes. Good man. Thank you very much, Boris. Hi, everybody. It's me once again. I see some familiar faces from last year. Okay. So, can everybody hear me perfectly fine, right? Okay. All right, so you can see today I'm here to give you a talk that's titled 5 Apps, 1 Code. Don't get too excited. I promise you it's not what you think. Yes. And so, hi everybody. Last year I was here and I had that absolutely wonderful time. And I even got myself a Hebrew name, Ze'ev. I'm the wolf. Yes. So yeah, hi. If you do not know me, I am Sani Yusuf, aka Ze'ev, by the way. Founder of Haibrid. I'm Nigerian, but I live in London. And I co-organize the Ionic UK community. I'm into the Angular and Ionic community as well. I like to paddleboard. The first time I actually went paddleboarding was here in Tel Aviv, Israel. And from there on, I've done it like 10 times at like 5 different locations. So that's pretty great. I'm a big fan of Avatar. Absolutely. So yes, if you haven't seen that movie, please, 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 come on. All right, and you can find me online, Sani Yusuf, everywhere. The same username pretty much, saniyusuf.com. Please visit my website. There's nothing there. All right. So today I'm going to show you how you can create 5 applications with 1 code base. Last year I was here and I talked about progressive web apps, and I thought to myself, we had such a great amount of time. What should we do? Whoa. Wow, okay. You do not see that every day. Hey, a round of applause for the helicopter. Hello. All right. Where else did you get this type of entertainment? All right. So first we're going to show how you can create an iOS mobile application. And this iOS mobile application would be installable. So it'll be a standard mobile application that you know. It will be installable from the App Store. And it would work on all the iOS devices. And then it will look and feel like a typical iOS application. So this is what we're going to start off with. And then we go on Android and pretty much do the same. We start off with an Android application. It's going to be installable from the Google Play Store. It'll work on all Android devices. It'll look and feel like a typical Android application. And next, we're going to do Windows, you know. So it's going to be installable from the Windows Store. But seriously, it's 2017. This is what happens when you don't use Ionic for your applications. It fails. All right, so we're going to create a Windows application. And last but not the least, we're going to have what I call a super web application. Because what is a web app today? A few years ago, a web application, we didn't even say web app, we said website, because you just went, you navigated between pages, you did what you needed to do, and that's it. That was all it was. But today we have what I call super web applications, because we have so many web standards coming out, and these web standards are pretty much promising to do everything, you know. So they work on normal desktop. By the way, I can't say desktop, I can only say desktop, sorry guys. It's an accent thing. And they're going to be responsive to all mobile devices as well. So you're going to have that. And they're also going to support the Progressive Web Apps initiative, which is being heavily pushed by Google. So just before we actually start, a good thing would be, I'm just going to go to the terminal now. Can anybody see my terminal? Yeah, I haven't figured out how to disable notifications, so you see any interesting notification, just ignore it. So I'm just going to open a new terminal window, and I'm going to go to my desktop here. I'm actually going to start the app, so I'm going to npm install live, which is the craziest thing. So to start up a new Ionic application, the command here, we'll go over this in a few seconds, is Ionic start. I'm just going to call this app Tel Avivo, because this is the name of the app I created last year, and I'm going to use the side menu template. So we can go back to the talk now, and I'll tell you all about Tel Avivo and everything. So, but before, like I said, all these we're going to develop those 5 mobile applications, because the super web app counts as 2. It's both a progressive web app and a standard web application. And we're going to use one code base. Now, some people are excited, while some people are like this guy, because they literally do not believe me. Like, how do you intend to do that? Which is fine. That's fine. Why don't you come on a journey with me so that I can actually show you how we can achieve this? Everybody excited to see what we're going to do? Okay, good. All right, so firstly, what the hell is Ionic? What is Ionic? You hear it all the time, and you go on Stack Overflow and you see 1,000 different people saying 1,000 different things, you know? Exactly. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Exactly. What is it? Ionic really is simply an open source SDK that lets web developers build mobile applications. That's all it is, I promise you. It's not more complicated than that. And how does Ionic work? It's really just web. It's a web framework. You can think of Ionic as sort of like the bootstrap on top, which you use to create hybrid mobile applications. It's very, very performant and all those things. It's been optimized. But everything, all the components that Ionic give you are built with HTML5. They're all web-based. And then it's built on top of the Angular framework. So if you are familiar with the Angular framework, which is what pretty much a lot of people are here for, I mean, AngularUP. Okay, you're familiar with that framework. You can leverage the power of Ionic to create your mobile applications. And it has a great CLI tool. We all know how it was difficult to start up when the new Angular was launched. When I say the new Angular, like Angular 2 upwards. Igor, don't kill me. But yeah, there was a problem because we didn't have a CLI. We had to do so many things, you know, Webpack. I don't even know what these things mean, you know, Webpack, Rollup, browser Wi-Fi, and bundling, and ES6, so many things to worry about. TypeScript now, you know, the Ionic CLI just handles all that for you, really. You don't really have to worry about that. It marries well with SAS. It has a very nice relationship with the Cordova CLI. So you can publish to your like iOS and app stores and the Android app stores as well. And it has an error reporting tool, which I will show. It's very customizable because when you start to create mobile applications, you want to know how you can fit your company's logo, your company's colors, how easy it is to do that. Ionic is built from the ground up to support pretty much that. It has an awesome, huge community. There's actually an Ionic Israel community, which is pretty active as well. There's a Slack channel with 13,000 people, and a lot of applications that have been built with Ionic out there on the App Store. And the components are native-esque, like I said. They're all built with HTML. I mean, these are not part of the inbuilt HTML, but they're very semantic. You can kind of get a sense of the header and the content to mirror what a mobile application is. And they're PWA ready. Why am I making a case for this point here? What we know as the web or mobile web today is changing because we have the Progressive Web App Initiative. And what that means now is we have this mobile apps that we used to create, and we used to use them on the App Store, but now we actually want to use them on our browsers, and we want them to be installable. We want our web applications to be able to do what our native apps are doing. And that's what progressive web apps are all about. And they achieve this with something called the manifest.json file, and another thing called the service worker, which I will talk about, and we're actually going to see. So now what everybody wants to do is they just don't want to create either a mobile app or just a web app. They want to create just an application. Because what is an app? It's the experience that moves. You're on the train, you're chatting with your friend on Facebook, you get to the office, you drop your phone, you go on facebook.com, you carry on where you left. That's the thing. You're in your car, somebody calls you or something, you respond. It's the experience that moves. So the concept of an application is no longer singular now. It's a much more of a universal thing. But how do we make sure that when we are developing apps, we have one platform and one set of tools that can use all across? That's very difficult today because a traditional team has like an Android team that doesn't like the iOS team, which wants to kill the Windows team. And everybody knows about the guy that pushes the master on Friday, right? Exactly. Well, I'll say Thursday here. We know that guy. So that's the kind of thing. We don't want that. We just want one semantic solution. So how do we achieve that? Let me go ahead and show you. So this is going to be a live coded session where I'm actually going to start from scratch. So the app we're creating, which is called Televivo, which I'll tell you about. So Televivo is an app I built last year, which was about interesting sites in Israel that I always wanted to visit. And I can tell you that I've actually crossed, I think, almost half of that list. These are interesting sites. So we can see, we can go here. Now we can actually CD into the Televivo application. And the command we run to create the Ionic app is the same one. And we can just do this, Ionic Lab, which is a command to actually build up to run our application for us. So let's go ahead and actually give this a second or two to come up. Okay, so we can actually see our Ionic Lab here. And I can do this and make it a bit smaller. Can everybody see that? Everybody see that? So what you see here is iOS, Android, and Windows running the same exact code. So to build a Televivo app, the first thing we want to do is actually go ahead and basically get our data. So I have this API, which I'm going to show you, that I've hosted online. Anybody can use this API. And it's a list of sites in Israel, and their pictures, which I kind of stole off different websites. Exactly. So we can see that. So the first thing we want to do, we want to make sure we sort of create that list of sites, right? We want to do that. So a part of me is just going to copy some of my code that I've actually already have. And we can go ahead and see that. So I can just open up my code that I already have here. Yes, so the first thing I want to do here is make sure I go here. So the first thing you want to do when you're working is you want to create some sort of service, correct? Everybody agree? When you want to talk to HTTP requests. So let's go back to our actual Televivo application and open it up. So I'm just going to go here, do new window. We can make this window full screen and put this side by side so that anytime I do eventually maybe if I do get lost, I can actually sort of reference with my existing code. So we can open Televivo. We can open that here. Exactly. Can everybody see that code? Is it big enough, or do you want it bigger? Big enough? Okay, perfect. So we see a standard Ionic application here that we have. And so this code is what is running on the browser. I can just open up a new terminal here. Selection, I can just say integrated terminal. And the first thing I want to do is I want to create a provider. And what do I want to call this provider? I want to call this provider site, the sites in Israel, right? So I can just use the command Ionic generate provider, and I call it site, and I hit enter. And that's going to go ahead and generate me a provider. And if you actually go to your source file here, you go to your standard app Angular application, and you look at your app.module, you can see that the provider has been created and automatically added for you inside of your providers block, which is one thing we always forget to do, right? So this is automatically done for you like the Angular CLI. So let's have a look at what that site's provider currently looks like. So this is it's just an empty provider. It's got nothing in there. So if we actually look at our app now, to see if anything has changed, we can go back to our app. Nothing has really changed. So what's the next thing we do? The next thing I want to do is I want to grab that API. I want to create a function here and call this function get sites. And inside of that function, I want to create a HTTP request to go and get those sites. So I can just look here. I have a private API, which I can just reuse here. So I'm creating a property. This is that API that we just used. And I can just call this and say http.get. And when we get that, I can say this.api. So I'm just passing that. And here, I can just do a map operator, because when we use this, an observable comes back, which is a HTTP response. We need to convert the response to JSON. This is pretty standard HTTP stuff for Angular. I can just say response, then I can just use an arrow function and say convert this to response.json. So now we have that observable, correct? Everybody going so far? Exactly. So we can also, again, look at our code to see, and you can see that every time I make a change, the build automatically runs for me as soon as I save. So we're still good. So let's just actually move these so that we can easily move between that. So what's the next thing we want to do now? We want to go ahead and use this inside of our actual app to display the list of sites that I've been talking about, which nobody has seen yet. So we can go to our homepage, our home.html. Just have a look at our app one more time. This app is a side menu application. We can just see that. It's just a standard side menu app. So we can go ahead now and we can delete all this code. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a card. Or we can actually just go here and we can go to our home.html. We can just copy the boilerplate code for the card here. And we can just make this look a little bit prettier. And here we sort of like have some sort of card that we created. And we can actually just highlight this first and make sure we comment that out. The next thing we want to do is go to the home.ts. We want to create some sort of a public here. We create, we can say sites observable. And we can say just of type any to save ourselves some time. And this is sort of like the observable we want to do. We don't want to do that in the constructor. Ionic has this life cycle called ion view did load. So it's sort of like your ng on init, but this is for the page itself. This is saying that the page has completely loaded. There's so many of them. And this is where we want to make sure we go and send our HTTP request. So now we can just import that, our provider here. We can just go ahead and import from, we can say providers, and we can get the sites provider, and we can get it in here. And now we can say sites provider. So here we just say private sites provider, like that. So we've injected that sites provider. I can just maybe do this so that you can see that properly. So now we want to use that, so we can say this dot sites observable equals this dot sites provider dot get sites. Well, we know that there's nothing in our get sites function, right? Of course. So let's go back to that. We've just created this, but we need to return this. So we return that to make sure that it's returning us a bunch of sites from the API, correct? So now let's go to the home.ts and actually have a look at our app. So we can see that we have an error, and this is a standard error saying that we haven't imported the HTTP module. So let's go and do that. So we go to the app.module.ts, and then what we now want to do is import the HTTP module. So we say import from, we say Angular /HTTP, and we get the HTTP module. And then we add this HTTP module to all our module declarations here. And then we save that. We wait for it to reload. We can see the build running, and then we see that exactly our app is back to normal in terms of it's not broken anymore. So now we can actually see that our site's observable is correct. So we can go ahead and now start using that. So what we can do is we can just take this card here, and we can say, we can do an ng4, and we can say, let site of sites observable, and then we want to use the async pipe. So instead of just setting a variable, we can just go directly and use the async pipe. So now if we actually use the async pipe, we can see the list of great sites in Israel that I've always wanted to visit. If you were here last year, should be pretty familiar to you. You know, Jerusalem, Haifa, Nazareth, Jaffa, the Dead Sea, and beautiful, beautiful places. So now, technically, by doing this, we've completed our $1 billion application, which is going to be invested in pretty soon. And we have an iOS, Android, and Windows version running independently. Thank you. And what I want you to notice is we've written only one set of code. At no point did we write if, else, or set breakpoints. We just wrote one set of code. We've just focused on solving our problem. But automatically, Ionic knows that on Android, the header should be on the left, the animation should be different, things like that. Even the font size should be different and height. And we can see that on the Windows platform as well. But that's the problem now is, what about a standard web application, right? Okay, because if I actually go away from this view and I go to localhost, so we are on port 8101, 8101, and if I enter this on a normal web application, we're going to have like this guy, and nobody likes this guy. This guy is bad for business, you know. And this guy is especially bad for business either when you're on a mobile phone, because you can't see this guy, or when you go to a proper desktop application and you see this guy. It's bad for business. So how do we solve this guy? This is where we use the Ionic grid system. And we can actually do that. So to save some time as well, we can actually go back to our code here. And what we can do is we can copy this here, our grid. And we can just replace that code here. We can just do this bit. And then we can comment on this. So what we've done is the same thing. We have the same code here from line 11 to 16. But now that code has moved to line 23 to 28. All I've brought in is the same. This is all I've brought in. I've put in a grid, which is Ion grid, to create a grid system, a standard grid of 12, which you can extend. Right now, I'm working on a project where we actually had to make that 18, and it still works. Don't ask me why. Then we have a row, right? And inside that row, we want to have columns. But on a big screen, we don't want to have that one big guy. We want to have maybe multiple columns, right? On a smaller screen, we want to have, like that on the mobile, one will be fine. On a maybe tablet, maybe two on a screen. But what about TV? TVs are, a lot of applications on TV are web applications. We want to take more advantage of the space. So instead of like having 3 or 4 columns, we want to have like 4, 5, 6, as big as the screen gets. Exactly. So that's all we've done here. What we've said is we've used the grid, and we said on a small screen, we want to have, what's it called? Extra large screen. The only thing you need to do is you have to do it in order of, ascending order from the smallest to the largest. So on an extra large screen, we want to have like 3 columns. On a large screen, 4. On a medium screen, we want to have 6, basically dividing the columns into 2. So 6 for one, 6 for the other one. So we want to have 2 things. On a big screen, we want to use 12 because we want to use the entire row. Good to go? So let's see how that looks. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually open up this here, and I'm going to go to port 8101, and I'm going to do this. So this is familiar, right? This is on a small screen, correct? Exactly. So now let's make this a little bit bigger. Automatically, we see that it's extended now. It's gotten to that first breakpoint. It's 2 now, so it's 6 and 6. Let's make this bigger again. Now we can see it's 3, right? So what if we now extend the actual application to a very, very large screen? So I have a HD computer here, and the resolution here is much larger. So now that guy that was like pretty surplus is now looking really nice. You know, he's gone on a diet. Thank God for him. And now, if you come on a website and you see this, this looks much more, you'd want to visit Israel, like for real. Like it looks much more laid out now. And now you can see all these beautiful places all laid out. At this point, we still have only written one code. We've not done if and else's. So we have how many apps now? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what's the 5th app? Can anybody guess what the 5th app is? PWA? Good, exactly. Because as soon as we go offline, this guy would not work. Do you agree? As soon as we go offline, do you want us to try? Or you believe me? Exactly. This guy would go offline, and that's what we don't want. So what do we do? How do we solve that problem? I'll show you the easiest PWA instance you've ever seen in your life. So when we actually created that application called Tel Avivo, a service worker was created for us. And that service worker already has code. So all we need to do is just go to index.html, and we can see that it's been commented. So all we can do here is just remove this comment, save this, and now we can go back, and we can actually refresh. We can try to refresh again. We can try to refresh again, just to see. So this is the point where something could go horribly wrong while I try to show you. So what I would boldly do is turn off my Wi-Fi, actually. And maybe I should refresh one more time, just to make sure. So I can turn off my Wi-Fi now and see. And let's actually try to refresh. So like I said, it could go horribly wrong. And we can do this. But we've turned off our Wi-Fi, and we still have that application. So now we have 5 applications, right? So we don't have internet, like, oh my God, I'm offline. But people can still see this. And if we go back to this guy here and refresh this guy, he's on a different browser, but because it's the same domain, it still works. And we can do all that. We can do that and that. So the guy on your tablet, the guy on the TV, the guy on the normal computer, and the guy on the phone would have this. All right. So I have a special feature I want to showcase. I always have a special feature. We forget, when I say we, I talk about people from, like Europe and everything. We forget that there are like 1 billion people that read from right to left. We always forget that. And like I said last year, it would be criminal for me to come up on this stage and not show you something that is very practical to your own domain. How about if we put right to left to that? Wouldn't that be cool? Exactly. So let's go ahead and do that. So to do that, I'm just going to, again, copy some of my code. And I'm just going to go on this list HTML here. And I'm just going to add this bit here because I'm running out of time. And I'm going to go to the second page here because we have another page called list. And I'm going to just delete everything I see within the content area and replace it with this piece of code. So let's actually go and preview this now. So we can actually now turn back on our Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi has done as well. So let's see. We can save that. Let's see if we go to our list, if it is updated. OK, so it hasn't updated yet. We can go back to Tel Aviv, and we can actually save. Where do we have our... Oh, OK, so it's updated now. Come on, I'm running out of time. OK, here we go. So now if we go to list... OK. For some reason, that wouldn't... Oh, of course, our service worker has cached that place. So we can disable our service worker in our application here. Yeah, so actually, that's actually proving that the service worker does work. So we can go to our place here. We can now sort of like do a hard reload on Chrome. So we can do this. Okay, I think you can inspect the element here, and then you can go to application, you can do clear site data, and then we can now refresh this. So this should work now. Okay. Okay, good. So this is Hebrew, right? Exactly, thank you. Thank you. But this is not great to read. Is it great to read? Would you like to read this way? I don't like to read this way. Well, I do, but not in Hebrew. All right, so how do we fix this quickly? Let's fix this with the last 1 minute that we have. So all we need to do to just fix this is we already have a function called, so we're in the right application. You can see how we have a function called change language. And all we need to do is just go to the code for this. And in the part of Angular, you have this thing called the platform. And all we need to do here is just put a comma and inject the platform. Let's just make it private. Oh, bad education. Sorry. It's not my fault. I had African education. All right, so platform. And what we can do is we can just create that function here. So I can just copy that to save us a lot of time. We can just copy this function here. And I'm going to explain what that function actually does. So all I've done is I've just called that platform we just instantiated, and I've called the set direction. You can change directions, I wish they had up to down. That would be pretty cool. But there's right to left and then left to right. Or maybe sideways. And all we've done on line 39 is we're setting the direction to right to left to true. So whenever we click that, we swap our language. All right, so let's go now and actually check our update. So now if we change our language, that happens. you know. So, and it didn't just happen for just the text. The side menu has moved. Now it's here as well, okay. And then we can go here, and even the English side, like everything, the app has now moved. So if this was all Hebrew, that would have all moved. And that's pretty cool, because this is very practical to your own use case. So I've kind of run out of time now. I blabbed out a bit. I can now go ahead and actually just show you all over the line. Like I said, we've been able to see right to left support. And there's also multilingual support, so you can actually have proper multilingual support. And the reason why I was able to show you that code is last year, I showed it happening. A lot of people thought I was a magician. So I said, no, I have to prove it now. And we've done that live. And the service worker is what makes this possible for the offline bit. You know, we finished the demo, but I thought that demo was awesome though, you know. Thank you. Thank you. So there's Ionic Cloud. Okay. There's the Ionic Cloud. You can use push notifications. You can use the auth. You can use the analytics. And you can use deploy, which if you want to see, I have a starter that allows you to update your apps live without going through the App Store. That's awesome. You can update your app instantly without going through Apple's long process, which after 2 weeks they tell you that your app is not pretty enough. They told me that. Yeah. And you can get started today. You can go to all these links, you know, all these guys. You can find me online, you know. Go to my website, follow me on Twitter. I might not follow you back because I look cool if I have more followers. I'm joking. But that will be all. If there's anything you want to learn or see, I'm still around. I'm pretty chilled on Twitter. This code, the slides are going to be up on GitHub. I'll push it up. And with that said and done, thank you very, very much. If you have any questions, I'll welcome down. So, yes, what was I going to say? Carl, I think, yeah? Yeah, there we go.